Hi, I'm Kelly Smith. I am the owner of Juice Personnel. We're a recruitment agency based in Horbury, and we've been going for 21 years. And as part of our service to clients, we really want to help clients with their onboarding process and their retention strategies. Reason being is recruitment's really expensive, and what we don't want is for clients to spend money and invest money in finding staff without having a backup or a retention strategy in place, which will then hopefully encourage staff to stay with that business. A lot of companies don't have great onboarding, and the reason for this podcast is it's Stress Awareness Month in April. There's Mental Health Awareness Week coming up in May. So we felt that subject itself would be great to link it in with staff retention, because mental health is a huge factor that increases staff retention, or 50% of staff are off sick with mental health issues. So I thought it would be great to educate our clients on how they can try and improve their own mental health strategies. And I've brought Jen Rawlinson in from Flourish in Mind. Jen specialises in going into businesses and looking at mental health. She does training. She gives them long-term strategy plans to make sure that they're not just putting a plaster on it, they are encouraging it long-term. I've then got Ryan, who works alongside me. Ryan heads up our construction division, which apparently has the highest number of mental health concerns. But Ryan is also an Andy's Man Club facilitator. So he's going to speak to us a little bit more about that. And then we've got Claire, who's joining us, who is a PT and nutritional expert. There's a massive link to exercise. There's a massive link to what you eat that links in with mental health. So I thought a conversation between all four of us would be great, and it would help our clients understand what they can do better to increase their staff retention.
We eat like our parents eat. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody tends to eat the same things. I don't know if it's supermarkets. I just think...
Because I always find that when you go to supermarkets, a lot of the time, there's things that they promote that are really healthy. If you look at their nutritional value in something that's not supposed to be healthy, you know what I mean? They're roughly the same. Or
it's like when you buy low-fat or zero-fat products, they just contain loads of sugar, don't they?
Yeah.
And sugar's known massively to increase your buzzness for a bit, and then you back down, aren't you?
Like anything, like fashion, foods have like fads and
they do.
And
protein's a big
everybody's
thing at the
going
minute,
crazy
isn't
for
it?
protein now. So they're like eating a 300-calorie yogurt, but it's like it's got protein in it. It's like but it's got.
But look how many calories it's got in it.
Yes. So people are very easily swayed on food, and it is quite complex.
Do you think that as well ties
easy.
into social media, the way that social media plays a part in it, with, you know, what you're talking about with protein, and you need to have as much protein as possible and not being in the calorie deficit?
I think at the end of the day, when it comes to social media and it comes to exercise and diet, the basics work, including your food.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just very basic, simple food, basic, simple exercise. But when it's on social media, if everybody did the basics, it's boring.
Yeah.
They want to see fancy. They want to see new. They want to be doing the latest thing.
Celebrity endorsed.
Yeah.
So that's why there's so much out there, when really, ultimately, it's very simple, very easy. There's basics to it.
I don't think most of us are educated on the basics, though.
Absolutely not. I agree.
I don't think you get taught it at schools.
No.
I mean, let's not go down that route. You don't teach much at school, to be fair, do they?
No.
When it comes to real life and looking after yourself and finances and things.
But how would you then go into a business and then get people to engage with you and kind of break those habits? How would you think you'd be able to do that?
Good question. I'd have to think about that and prep and print a few pages off. It's a tough one, actually, because it is a massive conversation.
Yeah.
It's a good question, that.
I think some people are just so stuck in the ways.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get them out of it. And like, my dad has retired, and he seemed to have aged like 10 years because he's retired. He's got out of his routine of going on his bike and working and eating at the correct times. He's staying in bed later, and he looks really frail. And I think
his routine's gone, hasn't
since
it?
he's retired, he's just. And I'm trying to get him back into his like old habits, but it's when they're stuck in the ways. It's very hard to especially like a bit older generation, they just don't want to listen really.
I think that's a really important part as well. Like, as a bloke, I mean, you probably know that our men in general harder to reach out and
often, but I think sort of from what I see, when you're looking at support groups like Andy's Man Club, it's that informal step. It's not as scary. It is scary to go, but I mean, going to a GP and things like that, it can all feel very serious. And I know lots of people that have had so much benefit from attending a support group.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to help them feel not alone.
Yeah, I agree.
As well.
Yeah.
And I think then when you look at that then from a workplace perspective, that yes, the groups are out there to find, but for me to train a mental health first aider that can signpost to lots of different types of support, it's not just kind of one specific type of support, giving that individual options. Again, it's the benefits, not just to that individual, but actually the organisation benefits as well.
Yeah.
Because that individual is going to feel like they're being supported. Yeah. Like work cares, they're taking it seriously. So it benefits
and
everybody.
We do get a lot of people come for the first time and you say, how do you hear about on his Man Club? And I'd say 60% of the time it is through work.
Yeah.
People,
really?
Yeah, people are signposting them through work.
That's quite interesting because when we were chatting earlier, a lot of employers generally bring in the mental health first aid training just as a bit of a sticking plaster to tick a box to say they've done it. Yeah. And then once they've done that course, that's it. It's almost like forgotten about. Yes. And that's where Jen would come in and continue the training and continue the wellbeing strategy. So it's not just a case of we've had some training, we're done with. So that's quite interesting.
Well, we've had people come to Andy's Man Club who have tried to do the first aid, and obviously there's segments of it that is quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they couldn't do it because of what they're going through themselves. And then they've been coming to Andy's Man Club for a period of time, and then they've gone back and done it, because they feel at ease and they understand it more and how everything works.
Yeah, do you know, it's really interesting is that, because going back to your point about it being a sticking plaster, I do get a lot of enquiries for mental health first aid training because it's that tick box thing. Yeah. But what you've mentioned there is something really important. Those individuals have to be in a good place themselves to be able to get through the training, but then be in a position to support others. And you think how irresponsible that might be. It's all well and good an employer introducing training of that nature, but if actually they could end up doing more harm than good if they're not careful. Yeah. And that's why I would support them by looking at the bigger strategy and understanding, are you in a position to support those mental health first aiders as well? And not everybody's ready for it.
Yeah. And I suppose if you are a mental health first aid trainer and you've got staff coming to you with their issues, who's looking after the trainer, the person? They might have their own issues going on. So the whole bigger picture is bigger, isn't it? It's not just about, like I said, putting a plaster on it and bringing in a first aid trainer.
Yeah, or when they have one person who's then responsible for everybody else as well.
I was that person at one of my former employers, and it was just after lockdown, and I was kind of struggling myself because I'm quite an active person, and I'd just gone back to work, but everything else, like going to the gym, going out with a dog, we're all limited, and playing football. I had all these things where I was so active, and I didn't know what to do with myself in a way, and they were just. Then obviously a lot of the pressure was on me to help others that were going through similar issues. Yeah. And I found it difficult because it was all on me, kind of thing.
I think just going back to what you've said about the COVID element, there's been a massive increase of people suffering with mental health since coming back to work. And with you mentioning the exercise thing, that's what we've tried to implement in our office. So we encourage our staff to exercise. We offer them subsidised circuit classes with Claire once a week, and they can go for a walk on a lunchtime. What's your take on the whole exercise and mental health link?
Well, I was going to say before when you mentioned COVID, I mean, COVID has got a lot to answer for, hasn't it? I mean, a lot of my clients post-COVID came to me saying, I put on loads of weight over COVID.
Yeah.
That's what I heard all the time. Sorry, what did you?
So where's the link between encouraging exercise to help with mental health?
Well, I mean, as a personal trainer and coach, and qualified in nutrition as well, I honestly believe that the first thing that a doctor should do when you go to a doctor with anything, including mental health, is ask, how are you exercising and what's your diet like?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's literally the basis of most issues when it comes to human beings. So in terms of mental health, exercise, obviously, it relieves stress. It helps you manage stress. It stops you suffering from certain illnesses. It prolongs your life, gives you a stronger body, makes you feel better, makes you look better. I mean, the list goes on, basically. So, yeah.
Okay. And have you experienced an increase in companies or people wanting to bring in exercise strategies into their wellbeing strategies?
I haven't, no. I mean, I work with yourself, like
Yeah.
you said. I think it's amazing that you subsidise your employees to work out.
Yeah.
I know that a couple of people that work for you really need that in their life, and if they didn't do it through you and in work time, I don't think they'd do it. So you're giving them so much more than just the money to subsidise it.
Yeah.
And they leave feeling fantastic and they keep coming back. And that has a knock-on effect in everything in life.
Yeah.
If you feel good about yourself, you wake up feeling more positive. You know, I mean, obviously I'm a big advocate for exercise, but on your mental health, it should be up there with one of the main things that you look at.
Just to touch on, obviously, what Kelly is saying there, obviously, she's subsidising. You think if Kelly didn't do that, then the people you said, the employees who work for us, would then just go home and not have that exercise in their life? Would you think it's...
I definitely think
Yeah.
they possibly wouldn't do any at all.
Yeah.
I think
It's the support. It's not just. I don't even think
that's
it's
what
the. I don't think it's the money.
No, I don't think it's the financial element at all. I think we're all really busy. We've all got kids. We come to work. We go home. We walk the dog. We make the tea. We don't have time to exercise. So what we did at Juice was we enable people to go do it in their lunch, or we go. We'll take an hour out of our working morning, go do your circuits class for an hour. And like you said, everybody literally loves it. They've stuck to it. They come every week and they leave feeling really good. And it might only be an hour a week, but it will have a really positive.
Absolutely.
It has had a really positive impact.
I think it's that togetherness as well, isn't it? Doing it as a team.
Well,
it's a nice environment to be.
Yeah, it's fun.
With a team. And it's a bit of a community. It's something that you all can relate to. You can chat about whether you're slagging me off because you absolutely hated that particular exercise, or saying to somebody, well done, gosh, you've really come on. Or there's just so much camaraderie that comes with it. And
and it's fun, and even it's hard, but it's fun. But there's a little stat here that I got from Mental Health First Aid, Mental Health for England website, and it says that Champion Health actually found that productivity was linked to employees feeling part of a team and well energized. So as well as improving on the mental health, if productivity can increase, what business or what employer wouldn't want that?
Yeah. And the big difference, though, that we're talking about here is this is an ongoing thing. It's not just a one-off exercise class that you've put in place. This is an ongoing benefit for the people. And too often you see where they might, run a series of things for a very short period of time and think, again, it's that we've ticked a box, we've done something for the well-being of our people, but it's not. It's more about a lifestyle change.
That's exactly what it is, a lifestyle change.
I do so much around sort of self-care and what can you do to improve your own well-being, and starting small, and just time and time again people will say, I've just not got time for it, I'm far too busy, I can't fit it in, and life is challenging and it is tough. So it's just amazing that they've got the opportunity to do it in work time.
I think we live in a society where people want things now, instantly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when it comes to looking after yourself, your mental health, you know, and it involves things like exercise and lifestyle changes. People want to do it overnight and they expect results and they want to feel better the next day, when it is about completely assessing your life and putting things in place, little tiny changes, once a week, every week, just something small, build on it, because you've got to accept that to change your life and to sustain it. You've got to make little changes that you can keep doing,
and you might need to adapt that plan over time as
Yeah.
well,
Not
where
overnight.
you are in your actual life stage.
Yes.
So for me, with a 5 and a 7-year-old who were at every class under the sun every single night of the week, what I used to be able to do before I had children, I can't do that anymore. So it's about adapting. Well, what can I do? And it's but lots of, you know, I didn't used to think in that way, but it's about encouraging people to sort of assess it as well. It's ongoing.
And we've moved to the Junction in Horbury 2 years ago. It's got an on-site gym. We're at the side of a canal. There's so many opportunities for staff to actually go and exercise or get away from the desk. When you're in an office and you've got no kitchen or you've got no canal to walk alongside, you just eat your dinner at your desk. You're in front of your screen for 8 hours. It's mentally draining.
Yeah, absolutely.
So since we've moved here, the staff wellbeing has gone through the roof. Everybody comments they love coming to work. They can work from home if they want, but they don't want to. They want to come here. And they can get here half an hour early, go work out for half an hour, get a shower, go to work. It's really, really changed our whole outlook on how to look after our staff. It's not just about, and I suppose this is the purpose of today, it's not just about paying them a good salary. That is not just about how you're going to retain your staff. You've got to look at other available options. You don't need a gym. You can take them for a walk or set up a running club. You know, it's there's lots of things that you can do to increase.
Just to touch on that, Kelly, obviously I've only been with business like 5 weeks and to be honest, that was a big pull for me, that you've got the gym, you're flexible with people, you know, going to the gym or going on a walk on the dinner. Because for me, that's one of the big things over the last probably 18 months since I've become a football coach. I've neglected looking after myself in a way because I make excuses. I'm busy every night with football, taking kids to football, and then, you know, work, and then football on a weekend, and it's fitting that in. So being part of Juice, you know, we're a big pull, absolutely.
So I suppose from an employee perspective, you go into companies all the time, Jen. What do employees want from an employer?
So all of the things that we've just been talking about, and I sort of had a little look and just see if there were any actual statistics on this, because obviously I'm hearing it all the time when I'm in companies training. But when I actually looked it up, it's a massive 68% of employees would choose a company that offers like flexibility, mental health support. All of these are the benefits over and above the pay. So it's that having that balanced work life. 68%. So it's massive.
That's quite staggering, isn't it? And especially from a retention perspective, when our clients are looking at how they can retain staff or why they're losing staff, the first thing that everybody generally looks at is, are we paying enough? Is it a competitive salary?
They go for a counter offer.
Exactly. And I think since COVID, that COVID word again, I think that's shifted dramatically, hasn't it?
You can see the impact though as well. You know, we're talking about retention, that, you know, they go to a company for that higher salary, but they're not going to stay there if they're not getting that balance of the work and life. So
absolutely.
They might get that bigger pay for a period, but it's not sustainable.
I think that ties in with construction. Obviously, we talk about construction. It's like 60% of construction workers suffer with mental health issues, and that's if that's a labourer or a project manager, the stresses are all different. And I just want to touch on that. Obviously, it's what we do is, as a employer, we manage expectations of a candidate, and we don't just check in with the client. I think a lot of people do think, you know, you're going to just check in with the client and make sure everything's going okay. But it's very important to check in with the candidate, make sure everything's going okay with them. And we know in construction that there's tight deadlines and they're working away a lot and might work 7 days a week sometimes, but also encourage that work-life balance, because it's very important, because you could be working 7 days a week for a long period of time, because that's the length of the contract, But you've got to think about your mental health in that side as well.
So why do you think there is a higher number of mental health issues within the construction sector?
Me personally, I think because it's a male-dominated environment, guys don't like to talk about their mental health.
Okay.
And I think, again, working away, you're not seeing your family. There's the stresses of the deadlines, job insecurity. You know, we've seen a lot over the last 12 months, a lot of companies go under. And I think that reflects in people's mental health issues in that sector.
And that's go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say as well, I think it affects their ability to sort of apply their own self-care.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they don't have that gym down the road and perhaps the other things that they would have ordinarily
and when I talk to a lot of candidates, when I check in on how's your week been and how's things going, and they'll just say, I can probably maybe 2% of people say, I've been to the gym, I've done this. It's always, I've gone out to the pub for some food.
I was just going to say
and it's just a long, because the days are so long, all they want to do is go back to the digs, have some food and go to bed, ready for the next day.
The food that's accessible is probably crap.
Fast food.
Takeaway. They'll have a couple of pints, which we all know is a depressant ultimately. So it all contributes massively. So Jen, I suppose, what can construction companies do to encourage a better lifestyle or to improve anything like that? What can they do?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's having people, because I've worked with a lot of construction companies for exactly the reasons that you've talked about there. And I ran a course a few years ago, and it was an online champions course, and they had site managers attending. They were all on jobs all over the country, which was why it had to be online. Literally, some of them dialed in on a building site. You could see everything going on in the background, and I'm thinking, how's this gonna go? Anyway, went with it, and initially very, very quiet. They weren't quite, I think it was because they weren't quite sure what to expect. Their briefing had not been the best either. I think one of them said, because I kind of stopped it after a bit and I thought, is everyone okay? And so I just said, right, hang on a minute, let's just stop. How are you all? And somebody said, kind of came out with, we're not quite sure why we're here. And one of them said, I thought I'd been put on this course because my boss thought I was mental. And it was like, they thought that he'd been put there. And a few others went, well, I was a bit the same. I just saw mental health and I thought they think that I've got a problem. And they thought it was like a self-help kind of course. It wasn't. It was because they were in a position of being a site manager. And
understanding the people that's under them.
Definitely,
that support.
So as soon as I explained that, everything sort of massively changed. But for me, it's about educating those individuals, because the likelihood is, as with the majority of us, a bit like with nutrition, we don't necessarily get educated around that. Mental health, we don't necessarily get any proper formal education about that, helping them to understand the risk factors and the protective factors. Because whilst you can't kind of create, a pop-up gym and things like that when you're working away, but actually there are things that you can do to encourage good healthy practices. So rather than everyone meeting in a pub after they've finished the work, they could perhaps look at something else to do.
Go on a walk,
if
or
it's
things.
summer, get out and
walk
go for
and
a
talk
walk
and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe avoiding the alcohol some nights and that kind of thing. But it takes them to, and this is where the education piece comes in, if they're understanding what the protective factors are, then it's then within their gift to be able to sort of promote that.
And I think in the construction industry, as like you mentioned there, I think it is a generational thing that, because it's been done for years and years, that we'll go work away, we stay in digs, we'd go for drinks. And the younger generation coming into that just think that's the norm, and they go and do it, and then they fall into that trap, and you see a lot of young people with mental health issues, and that's not like helping them in that sense.
I know we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about graduates feeling immense pressure when they start new work or new jobs, because they've got to be in the office at 7 to impress, they've got to stay till 7 to impress, and then they're expected to go out for drinks to socialise with their colleagues, and it's immense pressure. And you said a lot of level entry members of staff or juniors were feeling immense pressure and mental health concerns, weren't you?
Yeah, massively. And again, you look at that, all of those risk factors that are present for that individual. They're in a situation where they're in a new job, they're feeling under pressure, they're new perhaps to the industry, and probably work in general. If you're looking at a graduate, it's probably the first sort of proper job that they've had. And then you've got that element of they're probably not sleeping enough. All of the basics around nutrition are not there. You know, and again, you can really start to see that. And I think this is where a wellbeing strategy really comes in, and it's considering all of the different people. And actually, there's a lot a company can do to change, because it's culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just changing the culture. Our culture is very much based around drinking. I was just thinking when you were talking about the construction sites, and just imagine, I mean, I know quite a few guys that work away from home, and if one of them was to say, right, we're not going to go to the pub, we're going to go for a walk in the park and we're going to grab a nice healthy sandwich, I mean, they'd probably like sellotape him up and leave him in the van. Do you know what I mean? It would really take somebody particular to be able to influence, because like you said, it's ingrained in them. This is the culture, this is how it's been. How do you change that?
I think it's when you start seeing the benefits. When you start seeing the benefits.
It's that tipping point effect. That's not the right thing, is it? But just takes little changes, that snowball effect.
And talking. Yeah. I mean, that particular session that I've just talked about that I ran, it was all sort of very quiet. You could see that kind of macho culture as well, because you're a bloke, so you know, you've got to be strong and get on with it. And one of the guys, I think there was 14 of them, one person shared a personal experience, and he got quite upset as he was sharing this experience. And straight away, 3 other people were like saying, "You all right, mate? You know where I am, we can chat after."
Yeah.
Next minute, somebody else started sharing their experience.
Yeah, it's like a snowball effect.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. And I think in those kind of environments, people are afraid to be the first person to open up.
Yeah.
And I think once somebody opens up, everyone's like, actually, you know, I've got some issues myself. That in them environments, people don't want to speak about it in a work environment, in a male-dominated environment. And that's like where Annie's Man Club kind of comes in, where it's a peer-to-peer support group.
I was going to ask that, you know, when somebody comes for the first time, do you generally find people sort of sit back and just observe the session?
Yeah. And I was one of those people when I first attended, before I became a facilitator. I walked up to the venue and I walked back around. So I didn't want to go in, and you get that so often that it's taking that first step to get in. And then Annie's Man Club, how it works is you have 5 questions. The first 3 questions are always the same, and the last 2 are always set by head office, a bit more like light-hearted. But you do get people you don't have to talk. It's just observing. And I think you see people from week on week improve and open up. And I think it's because I think I'm not the only person going through this kind of thing. And you're not at the pub with your mates. You're not, you know, playing football or rugby, or you're not in a work environment where these people are strangers, you know, and you're opening up. And actually, everyone's got a lot of problems, and they're all similar. But, you know, it's people don't think that when I first went, and there's all walks of life. You know, when I went, Anna, there's people who work, you know, as a bin man, or there's people who are police officers. There's all walks of life there, and a lot of people from construction, because of what we've mentioned about, you know, the working away from home, they miss their family, but they don't want to burden their family about talk about it, and they don't want to talk about the issues, what they've got at work, and how they're feeling. So that's where Annie's Man Club is a great place to go for guys.
Over to you, Ryan.
So what I was just going to say was, I found a quote earlier, and it says, "Only when onboarding and mental well-being are integrated well can meaningful employee experiences that promote health and performance from the offset be created." And I just thought, what you might have something to say about that, because companies often don't implement it from the offset. They implement it down the line when maybe it might be a bit too late, and the staff have thought, there's no support here, I'm off.
And I think, when there's a serious problem as well, you know, if something has happened, it's almost a reaction to something, and then we think, oh gosh, now we've got to do something. So no, you're absolutely right. And I think, you know, when you look at onboarding, that sets the scene, doesn't it? It kind of it's I don't know, it's almost like the branding of that organisation that they've just joined, isn't it?
It is. It demonstrates that you are a company that cares.
Yeah.
And that's a massive thing for employees when they join businesses. They don't necessarily want to have the best pay packet anymore. It's about a company that genuinely can offer them that extra little bit more. So yeah, showing them that the care from the offset can potentially help their retention.
I can see how it could though, because then, you know, another job comes up elsewhere and they've just not been shown that anyone really cares about them.
Yeah.
They are not going to think twice about upping and leaving
Absolutely.
and going somewhere else. Whereas it's about building that loyalty and that trust from the outset.
Yeah.
They're going to think twice about moving on to somewhere else.
Yeah.
I just think as well, you spend the majority of your life at
At
work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to be happy, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like it's,
Well, yeah.
it's not just the pay, is it? Because we've touched on this already, haven't we? But
Yeah.
we're at work more than you're at home.
Yeah.
So
Which I think is why more and more businesses are becoming more and more aware of how they look after the staff, not just how they pay their staff. And mental health, being aware of it and how it implements on their staff at work increases productivity and whatnot. It's becoming more and more apparent.
I think as well, if you've got that balance, we all in past have worked in jobs where you think, oh no, it's Monday morning, you don't want to go into office. But if you've got that balance and you're excited to go into office and you know that you can go to gym in your lunch, or
you know,
you've
got that class with Claire coming up later.
Or you can go on a
highlight
walk.
of the week.
You know, it straight away it sets you off that week, doesn't it? I think if you're going into work with that mentality, thinking, "Oh God, it's work again," and then it, like you said, productivity just by end of week, you think you're living for weekend kind of thing. And I think if you change that culture, then your company will be more successful.
It has to be thought out though as well, because it's all well and good saying we're going to do all these things.
Yeah.
But if you've got a team of managers, leaders, team leaders who actually don't have the skills, they're not equipped. Because if you think about it, generally speaking, we don't just talk about our mental health. It's a difficult thing to talk about. And lots of people say that they'd be worried, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I make it worse? Or that's not ours to deal with, that's their personal issues and things like that. Usually it's because they don't feel equipped to be able to have those conversations, because they're difficult.
I've had a lot of people speak to me about that kind of thing, about, well, I've had issues in the past, but, you know, I've put things in place to help me with that, but they don't want to mention the issues, even though they could help other people and it'd be beneficial to the company, because they're scared of what would happen, obviously, if they mentioned, obviously, I've had issues in the past, or I've not been in a great place.
Yeah, so what we're seeing with clients is they're recruiting people, and you don't have to disclose whether you've got mental health when you apply for a job, and nobody is going to apply for a job and tell their employer that, because it's got such a stigma attached to it. Clients don't want to take on people, or haven't in the past, whereas now it's flipping and there's more help available to employees, rather than them just being disregarded. Yeah,
I think if you've got somebody in the business that has dealt with those, everyone's got, you know, different issues.
Of course they have,
but if somebody's gone through that hardship and they've come out the other side, if you employ them and then you've got other people joining the business, if any issues, they're there for that advice, aren't they? You know.
Yeah.
Do you know what crossed my mind then? Though, what if you are open and you're speaking to somebody who's working for you, and they say and they open up to you and they say, I've been feeling this way, or I've got this problem. What if you then don't know how to deal with that?
So that's where Jen comes in.
Right, okay.
I can help.
Then that's good to know then, because, you know, it's all very well saying we'd love to help and what's going on, but then they come back with something and you just think, whoa, I cannot deal with this.
I think giving them options, obviously.
And that's exactly the training that I would then provide,
fantastic.
so that they can respond to that.
So, so that's where Jen comes in. So you might often get a member of staff coming to speak to you and saying, look, I've got this going on at home, or I've got a financial crisis, or whatever. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that they're suffering with mental health to be able to signpost them. They might be stressed out, they might have anxiety. It doesn't all have to be depression. But again, this is where Jen comes in and teaches well, I'll let you speak about it.
Yeah, well, it's not teaching them to be the expert either. It's
No.
not that we're training like
No.
a group of counsellors.
Yeah.
It's a signposting role, but they're trained to listen, show empathy, take them seriously, validate whatever it is that they're going through. But then ultimately they're in a position where they've got, you know, access to a whole host of resources that they can signpost them to for the proper help that they need. So Andy's Man Club would be an example of somewhere where somebody might signpost.
And I think it's horses for courses, isn't it? Not every method works for each individual.
No.
And I found when I was struggling that doing a diary helped me, because I was thinking that I was having bad days, bad weeks, bad months. But actually, when I wrote everything down, I was having more positives than negatives.
Right,
But as humans, we always just focus on that negative. I might have one negative in that week, but at the time when you're really struggling, you concentrate on that. Whereas I'm thinking, oh my God, look at all these positives this week that I've done. And then that's when I personally saw the change in myself. And, you know, you start seeing that light at the end of the tunnel, and then you can give that advice to other people. But again, that might not work for another individual. But I think having the resources to have different options is very good.
It's definitely about knowing what your options are. And not everybody knows that, do they?
And I think that's why people don't have the conversation.
A
bit like you said, Claire, they told me all this stuff and now what do I do? But there is help. There is a lot of help and support available.
And I think a lot of people are scared of going to the GPs, as you mentioned before, and they don't want to, one, have a counsellor, or two, be in a group setting where there's other individuals. And I think, you know, these, you know, such as Annie's Man Club, and there's Men with Sheds, there's lots of support groups out there now that guys can go to and get that support. Not just guys, there's a lot of women's clubs as well.
There are,
I think if you go to the doctors, I mean, if they offer you counselling, it's like, this is a good 18 months waiting
list. Absolutely.
It
or
can
take
be
these tablets.
I just want to sort of cut in there, because that is a myth, actually.
Is it?
So the waiting list can be hugely long, but actually locally I know people that have accessed support within a couple of weeks, depending on how you access that support. And the danger is when you're hearing things like there's an 18-month waiting list, people just give up and think, well, what's
I'm
the
not going
point?
to even go to doctors.
And early intervention as well, because as things progress and if they became much more serious, it's a different level of support that individual needs. And then it can be a real challenge. So I'm not saying that there isn't a challenge, but it's not an 18-month waiting list everywhere for every type of support. So some people can access things like counselling within a couple of weeks. It can be much
I think
sooner.
it is important, like you said, to get that early intervention, because it gets to a part where you feel that there's no like support, and then that's when crisis team come in, and it's you past that point where, you know, going to Andy's Man Club, going to support groups and trying to help yourself, you've gone past that point, I think.
So as part of an employer's wellbeing strategy as well, like we've mentioned earlier, exercise and nutrition, if you could tell an employer to give the member of staff some advice on how to improve their activity levels, what would you suggest to do? Just say they can't afford a gym membership.
Okay, so there's a thing called NEAT, and it's your non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Okay.
Without getting too technical. So basically, that's every movement that you do away from the gym. So a lot of people think, I can do my job, I'm sat at a desk from 8 until 5, and then I can go to the gym for an hour and I'm healthy. Well, you're not, because you've been sat sedentary. So you need to be making sure that you're moving your body a lot more through the day. And there's loads of little things that you can do. So as an employer, you'd encourage people to pack, well, it's easy saying this, but
park a bit further away,
so you're getting more steps in. Use the steps, not the lift. Instead of sending an email to your colleague across the room, get up, walk there. There's stretches you can do at your desk. If you're on a phone call, stand up. There's so many little things. Encourage them to go for a walk at lunchtime. I mean, that's easier said than done as well. But, you know, I'm sure even if you're in a built-up city, you can walk somewhere.
I think that's very important, what you've touched on it before about, you know, we're always busy. People always think they're busy, you know, and you just sit at your desk and you have your lunch there, and you're there 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day. But that little break in the day, going on a walk, you know, it frees your mind up, doesn't it, just from staring at that
Fresh
screen
air.
and
being in contact with nature.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds really a bit like hippie-ish, but it's really true. Just that bit of sunlight on you.
I always think about when you're walking the dog. You know, you see so many people walking the dog, as you were to talk about, again, that exercise. And how many people do you see on their phones where the dog is just enjoying it? The dog is there, enjoying the surroundings, the nature and everything. But as humans, sometimes we just get our phone out and we're answering an email or we're texting somebody back. But that little half an hour for yourself is very important, I believe.
I think role modelling, though, comes into what you've just said there, Claire, as well. You know, when you look at business leaders, owners, that, you know, sometimes I see it where they're telling me, well, we can't make people leave the desk at lunchtime, and we're telling them that they need to go out and step away and have a proper break. And I'll say, well, what do you do? Oh, well, I've got too much work to do. I sit at my desk.
Yeah.
And it's all well and good saying it, but they've also got to do it as well. And
lead by example.
How powerful it is to lead by example.
I do the circuits class, don't I? I do take part, and I make sure I'm there every week.
But you probably don't realise the difference that's making by you actually being involved in that. Because so many times you've got those business owners that think, well, it doesn't apply to me.
True. I just think it's, like you mentioned earlier, it's a bit of a team building exercise, because we all like go together and we all like struggle together, but we do have a really good laugh for an hour.
And I think as well,
really nice
just before
to be out of work and doing something with your colleagues out of work as well.
Just before you go, it's like that banter before.
Well,
no, she's going to store for us today. It's that little, you know, that kind of banter, and then you come back and like,
we're all like really red and sweaty going.
But then as well, I think the knock-on effect of that is when you do exercise, you want to eat something healthy, don't you? After you don't want to come back and, you know, have pie and chips or something. You know, you want to have something healthy when you come back from that exercise.
Yeah. So I know there's quite a few companies in our office block. There's a yoga session that's available once a week. Obviously, circuits is available twice a week. More and more companies are implementing exercise into their wellbeing strategies because they realise that it does have a knock-on effect and it does increase productivity. Do you see that as well with companies? Are they what are they including in their wellbeing strategies to improve retention?
Yeah, so one thing that I talk a lot about, because you've got one side of it where they think the financial bit's enough, like paying for a gym membership or putting towards a big gym membership.
Yeah.
But as we've said, it's usually the time, it's fitting it in, getting it into the lifestyle.
That's the big part,
we have done that and nobody went.
No.
And we were paying for gym membership and nobody bothered going.
Yeah.
We don't force them to do Claire's class, but it's there and they come because they've got time. There's no excuse, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because it's our time that we're giving to them to go do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, gym membership was a waste of money.
Yeah. But then actually introducing things that are more cost effective, things like a walk and talk on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
For anyone to go along to. You know, you're not necessarily talking about their mental health, but they might it's just getting out with your colleagues and chatting. Yeah. Summer, it's obviously
and I think when like
that.
you just mentioned about walking, talking, when you are in that office space, you probably don't open up as much. But when you're on a walk, and you know yourself when you go out with people after work, you see a different side to them.
Yeah.
So I think it's very important, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And meetings, taking meetings outside, one-to-ones, having them on a walk to somewhere and back, rather than being in an office room sat at a desk. So you're still incorporating the kind of movement and the activity, but it's still like a work thing, but it doesn't cost them any more money to implement things like that.
Yeah. And going back to nutrition, because it is a huge thing that affects everybody. Do you think clients or employers would benefit from having somebody like yourself going in and doing little masterclasses or workshops about how nutrition can help them? Because it's not something we learn at school, is it? Or
No. Yeah, I think it could definitely help people because, I mean, we've spoke about this. A lot of people don't have a clue even about just a general, you know, basic, balanced, healthy diet.
And that can affect mental health.
Yeah, it does. You know, obviously, not eating right can make you feel bad in yourself. If you gain weight, that obviously has a knock-on effect on your mental health as well. So being in control of your diet, knowing that you're putting good nutrients in your body, giving your body everything it needs, again, as a knock-on effect on your life in general. And also, if you've got kids as well, you're influencing them. And
and it all starts at home.
Starts at home.
I think about that with my upbringing, that I'm quite a fussy eater. And I think that is because, like you said, your parents influence you on what you're eating. And I wish that I had tried more things and I had that education on, on nutrition when I was younger.
Chicken nuggets.
No. Sometimes. No, but yeah, I think it is a big part. Like you said, I think when I first started going to the gym when I was like 17, I didn't know what to eat or what to do. It was just, as we talked about earlier, protein.
Yeah.
And, you haven't got that education side of it.
It's just like little things like drinking coffee through the day at work has a knock-on effect on your sleep, which then has a knock-on effect of how you feel the day after.
And you never get that time back, do you?
No, and I think if employers had people going in and just giving them little top tips like that, don't drink a coffee after 2:00, or people think they can't afford to make nutritious food, and it can be done really cheaply, can't it?
It can be, but people will not. They'll say, I haven't got enough money to eat healthy, but they'll spend 30 quid on a takeaway on Friday night, and then they'll go to the pub for a couple of hours and spend 40 quid on a few pints. I mean, I don't know how much a pint costs, to be fair, but people they do have the money.
Yeah.
This is the thing. But yeah, it's just lack of education and not knowing what to buy.
Yeah. It's developing a life skill, though, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's, because like we said, you don't get that education anywhere else.
No, but all these life skills ultimately have an effect on your employee well-being, which in turn increases staff retention, which is the whole purpose of what we're here to chat about.
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily about paying the better salary.
Yeah. So all those little things add up, don't they?
Yeah. So the more businesses can be aware of what's out there that are just not benefits to perks and pensions and gym plans, it all contributes, doesn't it?
And do you know what? People talk to the mates about it as well, don't they?
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
talk about what they get through work.
Yeah.
Of course
So,
they do.
thinking about future recruitment and things, they're more likely to recommend their place of work as somewhere that's good to work.
Yeah.
I love this evolution of like the humans and at work, because obviously we came from the fields, the Industrial Revolution happened, then the working day started, and now we're getting to a point where I think we're realising as human beings we've actually got it really wrong.
There's more to life.
And it isn't all about money, although the way prices are, obviously it's incredibly important, but let's start finding a better balance. Let's actually start looking after ourselves. Let's enjoy work. Let's enjoy looking, you get one body, should be your biggest investment. And if you've got a healthy, good body and mind, you're the best person you can be for everybody, including your boss. That's why bosses should
invest in it.
So I was just saying about with Andy's Man Club, people often think, suicide is the answer, when it's not, because how many people it affects after that. It's not just you that it affects your family, your friends at work, and it's that snowball effect that it can go, like it's like throwing a pebble into the water. Ripple effect. That's what I'm aiming for. I think people don't think that, and I think when you go to these kind of support groups and you can open up and talk about your issues and see that you're not the only person going through it, is very powerful. It's very powerful.
It says here 9% of professionals experience thoughts of suicide. That's a staggering amount of people, isn't it? Do you find Andy's Man Club that a lot of people are from a professional environment, or is it?
No, I think it's like I said earlier. I think
it's
a complete mix, and I think that's the beauty about it. You wouldn't necessarily get all those people in a room ever, apart from that kind of environment. And people, as a facilitator, it's so good to see when somebody comes through the door for the first time, to say maybe week 6, that the persona, how they are, and making friends. You know, there's a lot of people come as well that we talk about working away. If they haven't got family, they're the only people that they work with. It's important the people you work with, you know, when you come back and you're on your own, it's loneliness. And I think then they think, I need to work 7 days a week. I need to be in that environment because they've got nobody else. And loneliness is a big part where when I first go in, I was thinking it's just kind of people who's got stress of work, money, financial, you know, and it's not just that, it's anything. It's, you know, people who go there while actually lonely and want to open up.
I suppose the good thing about it as well, like you said, they come from all walks of life. There isn't just that construction culture.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of different cultures.
But it's all relatable. I think, you know, that's a big thing that...
Well, you've all got one thing in common, haven't you? It doesn't matter where you're from, what you do, how much you earn. You are all there for the same reason.
And I think it's so refreshing when you go to these places, when these support groups, that if you go week in, week out, like I say, it's not for everybody, but you could be that person that the previous 2 weeks, you know, were very emotional and couldn't get the words out. 2 or 3 weeks later, you've got something good to say about your week and how much it's improved. And the person coming through the door for the first time, seeing that is powerful. It's very powerful because you can see how you can improve and what changes you can make to your life that can make you, you know, come out of that dark place.
The stat that you just shared there, the 9% of professionals, when you look kind of across generally across the population, the estimate is that it's 20% of adults will have thoughts of suicide. That's so 1 in 5 of us.
Wow.
So it impacts so many people, but yet it's very, very taboo, and a lot of people don't talk about it.
I just sort of got these from a work perspective.
Absolutely,
so 1 in 5 general.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot, isn't it? So I suppose, gosh, that is a lot. So I suppose from an employer's perspective, they really need to be on board with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, that, you know, 1 in 5 people, how many people applying for your job? If you get 10 applicants, potentially you've got 2 people there with mental health concerns.
Yeah.
And they might not necessarily not be able to do the job. They just need maybe some support.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's when it goes back to managing expectations, and when you're speaking to them. Personally, I would never put anybody forward knowing that they would get rejected, and then they'd have that, you know, issue where
so we've said this before. As a recruiter, we're quite ethical in that. Yeah. Because the interview process in itself is stressful.
Absolutely.
You know, you're putting yourself on the line. If you don't get the job, the impact that can have is horrific. Yeah. If you're struggling financially, you need that job. So from a recruitment point of view, I would hope that none of us would put anybody forward who we don't expect to get that job, just to sort of throw mud and fingers crossed, fill the numbers.
Yeah, tick box.
Yeah. Ethically, absolutely not. We wouldn't ever recruit like that.
No.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree, totally agree.
And that's looking at it from a different angle again, isn't it? From a recruitment point of view. Yeah. But yeah, like you mentioned earlier, as an agency, we don't just recruit and hope that everything goes okay. We do check in regularly. We do make sure they're all right, they're settled in. Is there anything they want to talk to us about? But one of the seminars we did recently about onboarding was for companies to assign a buddy or a mentor for that new starter, because again, the whole new starting a job process can be
very daunting,
really daunting, really stressful. If you know, it's just not a nice experience in some cases, is it? And especially if you're struggling anyway. Yeah. So we would suggest that an employer has an onboard, has a mentor, or has a go-to person that the new starters can go to if they've got any concerns. Amazing. You know, it's just so simple but really effective. And again, that can help with retention. They feel that they've got somebody that they can speak to, and if they've got anything to speak to about. Going back to the mental health first aid, how many companies don't have it in place? I know that's a massive statistic for you to say, but there's obviously a lot of people out there that need it then.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But
do more have it than don't have it?
I'd say more don't have it.
More don't have it.
Yeah.
And do you think, sorry to just jump in there, but as we were talking earlier, one of my farm employees, they did these courses, a reaction to something that happened. Yeah. And is that what you kind of get a lot of the time? Is it like people thinking, well, something's happened in the workplace, so we better do this now, rather than prevention?
I'd say now more prevention.
Right, okay.
And it's definitely changing, which is good. But again, for me to be responsible, if somebody comes to say we just want mental health first aiders, I will always ask questions to understand what support they've got in place for those first aiders, what other things have they got, so that they're not seeing it as this is the solution. Because again, this is, if you've not got the right people in those roles, recruiting your mental health first aiders is a big thing, because there's a massive responsibility on those individuals around things like confidentiality and stuff like that. So yeah, I'd say a mix still, but if it is reactive, I'll ensure that it's right for them, because it might not always be right.
When you're talking about like the individuals there, do you think a lot of companies put more senior people into these, or do you think it has to be the right person, someone who's maybe gone through that hardship? Or, for me personally, I think it would be better for someone to go in who's got the understanding that's comfortable, rather than someone. I've been in places where somebody, just because they were a manager, got put on this course. They didn't really want to do it. They wanted to do just the normal first aid course, not the mental health, but they put on that because they were more senior. And I think that, again, it's a bit of grey area, isn't it, really?
My recommendation would be to have a mixture of people. I think people that have been through difficulties themselves, you can see how that can be really beneficial. But on the other side of that, they have to be in the right place to be able to do it. Because there's a very real danger that conversation could switch to be all about them and them sharing their experience, which isn't what that role is. But equally, if you think that you've got different levels within an organisation, somebody who is a higher level is unlikely to go speak to somebody of a lower level. That can be quite difficult. So if you can get representation at different levels, just get a real diverse sort of range of people would be my recommendation. And do it on like not just hand picking people, because those individuals have to want to do it. So a company that I worked with, or who I work with sort of long term, but they've just recruited another 10, but they did like an application process. They had to write a little bit about why they wanted to do the role. Good, and they said through that, what they actually found was some people wanting to do the role actually didn't realise what the role really was. So it became apparent that they were not the
How
right
long is
people.
the course then?
It's 2 days.
2 days. And how do you find that employees think, we'll go back to that's 2 days out of your work week? How do you find that then? Do people like the very what's the word I'm looking for?
I know what you're trying to say.
More open to it.
So I'd say the ones that are saying, 2 days, I don't think we can give up 2 days. I would say they're not ready for it yet.
Right, okay.
Because if they don't see the benefit of giving people 2 days of training, you've also got to think, well, they're also going to have to give those individuals time in the working day to support other people. So if they can't give up 2 days to do the initial training, there's a bit of a problem there, and it doesn't quite fit. The ones that are on it and they're doing it for the right reasons, absolutely, they're comfortable with the time.
I'm just trying to find I've got another stat for you. Just going back to the I love a statistic. But just going back to the 2 days training, there's a stat that tells you how many days are wasted through mental health illnesses. And I can't remember what it is, but it's not 2 days, is it? It's massive. So my point being is
15 point something.
It's
per employee.
It's a lot. So on the flip side, think about how many days you might lose through mental health, rather than doing the 2 day training course. It doesn't weigh up at all, does it?
No.
So it's definitely something that needs considering.
I wanted to mention something actually, Kelly, that we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, which you talked to me just on the recruitment side about cultural fit.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that massively fits in with what we're talking about here. It just got me thinking, when you were talking about not putting people forward for a job if you know they're not the right fit for the job. But you were mentioning to me about, but you've got to know that it's the right cultural fit. And actually, if it's not, the impact that can have on someone's mental health as well.
Absolutely. What we were discussing is if we start recruiting for a client, we'll go visit the client, we'll check out the team, we'll check out the culture, and we'll make sure that as best as we can, that the person that we put forward is right for them. Because imagine putting a person in who's wrong. They've left the job, they've packed in the job to go to a company that isn't right for them. They hate it. they're struggling, they can't find another job to replace it. The impacts on that is huge.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the whole recruitment process, hopefully that we all implement at Juice, considers every step of the way how it's going to affect the candidate from application right through to appointment.
Yeah, it blew me away, did that though, just the way you were talking about going to visit the clients. You've got an understanding, a feel. It's not just
really
what they do,
important.
but it's that cultural side. And I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, it's really important. And from the client's point of view as well, they've got an existing team that they've got to look after.
Yeah.
So putting the wrong person into that existing team, that can cause their team members to then have problems.
Yeah.
There's more to recruitment than meets the eye.
And I think
there really is.
I think recruitment in itself has got a bad rep for all being about money.
Yeah.
Where we're totally different to that. Like you said, you go in and you want to know that they're going to be the right fit for the company. They're going to be the fit for themselves, the culture and everything's got to be, aligned, hasn't it, really?
It's completely, 100%. And once they're in there, we want to make sure our clients are aware of as many options as possible to help them keep their staff and keep their staff happy. Last thing we want is them spending money with us and then it being a waste of money 3 months down the line. Well, I think we've covered absolutely everything there. Has anybody else got anything they'd like to add? No? So the whole purpose today was to try and share how mental health training can benefit our clients, where to signpost them or to signpost their employees, how to encourage exercise and nutrition, because we want our clients to grasp that as well. So thanks Claire, thanks Ryan, and thanks Jen for being on our very first podcast. Loved it. Thank you.